So take a few minutes and come home to your breath. Watch your breath. Let the mind settle. So let's try and make our mind close to the Buddha's mind by generating bodhicitta, so that our motivation is the same as the Buddha's, and really working for the benefit of all living beings, learning the Dharma so we can complete the stages to awakening, so we can be of the greatest benefit. So cultivate that attitude, and let's make that our reason for being together. Then slowly open your eyes, come out of your meditation. So last week when we left off, the topics we covered last week, I think, are pretty profound and important. So I really recommend going through those more. But at the end, I said, I'll start on the perfection vehicle, describing the objects of refuge. And I've subsequently changed my mind and thought we should first start with the fundamental vehicle. So the fundamental vehicle includes the Theravada tradition, as it's practiced in Southeast Asia and South Asia, and now in the West. And it's called fundamental vehicle because the Mahayana teachings and the Vajrayana teachings are all based on these teachings. So the Mahayana and Vajrayana teachings are based on the teachings of the fundamental vehicle. And the basic teachings in the fundamental vehicle center around the four truths. Most people call them the Four Noble Truths. I just say the four truths. And also, if we think in terms of Lam Rim, the initial and the medium scope, it covers those teachings. And then also the teachings about selflessness. So in preparing this series of books, I was initially just writing about the Tibetan tradition. And then His Holiness says, I want this book to be different. And, I want people to learn about other Buddhist traditions. And so that's why in all the volumes of the book, you'll find material about either the Theravada or fundamental vehicle teaching. I often call them the Pali tradition, and also the Chinese tradition. And this was really at His Holiness's request. So And it's fundamental because everything is based on it. So we have to really understand this. And it's really rather beautiful how they talk about the three jewels of refuge. So I'll read a little bit and then explain. Okay, if you have the book, it's on the bottom of page 10. So according to the fundamental vehicle, the Buddha jewel is the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived approximately 2,500 years ago. The Dharma is the true paths, expressed as the eightfold path of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Okay. Yeah, and so the Dharma is the true path, so that eightfold path that I just listed, and also the true cessations of dukkha and its causes that are in the mental continuum of an Arya being somebody who has realized selflessness. The Sangha refers principally to the four pairs of realized beings. Okay, so the approacher and abider to stream entry. So in these four pairs of realized beings, in each pair, there's one that's an approacher, meaning that they are approaching that stage, and one that is an abider, meaning they have attained that stage. And the four stages that they approach and abide in are stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arhat. And so that gets explained a little bit further on, those four. Okay, but they together, they consist the Sangha jewel, and bodhisattvas are also included in the Sangha jewel. So many people don't know this, but in the Theravada tradition, there is a bodhisattva path that is described. It's quite interesting. Okay, and then a commonly recited verse from the Pali tradition expresses some of the magnificent qualities of the three jewels. So I'll read these because, reading the verses, praising the qualities of the three jewels is very inspiring. It lets us know what we can become, and it also helps connect us to the objects of refuge. Okay, and if you're in a Theravada country, these verses are chanted a lot. Okay. So the Buddha, the pure one, with ocean deep compassion, who possesses the eye of wonderful stainless insight, the destroyer of worldly evil and defilement, with devoted heart, I honor that awakened one. The Dharma taught by the master, like a lamp that illuminates the path, fruit, and deathless nirvana, untouched by the conditioned world and pointing the way beyond. With devoted heart, I honor that natural truth. The Sangha, the most fertile ground for cultivation, seers of true peace, awakened through the Sugata, all wavering subdued, Aryas with subtle wisdom, with devoted heart, I honor that Arya community. So quite beautiful verses. The qualities of the three jewels are also described in the Jewel Sutra. The Buddha delivered this sutra when the city of Vaisali was subject to the triple disaster of famine, evil spirits, and plague. Yeah. So it's kind of like the world now, the war in Ukraine, inflation, and whatever. I don't know, in Australia, your next crisis. In the US, we have plenty of them. Yeah, we're open to you know, the US likes to export their crises too, but I think you should set up very strong immigration laws and not let US crises touch your country. Yeah. Okay. So Vasali was subject to the triple disaster of famine, evil spirits, and plague. Well, we have COVID, yeah, and there's it looks like there's going to be a shortage of food in many countries because of the war. The citizens invited the Buddha and the Sangha to visit to remedy the difficulties. The protective blessing arising from the Buddha teaching this sutra, the Jewel Sutra, and from the citizens reflecting on the qualities of the three jewels, that protective blessing spread throughout the city. The triple disaster ceased and the citizens lived in peace. And the sutra is, kind of explains this whole thing and what happened and the calamity that was in Vasali and how reciting these different verses cleared the calamities and cleared a lot of the karma that was involved in them. Okay, so then there's some, okay, so here's a verse. Yeah. Whatever treasures exist here or beyond, or whatever precious jewel is in the heavenly world, there is none comparable to the Tathagata. This precious jewel is in the Buddha. By this truth, may there be safety. So verses like this that are said when there's some kind of plague or pandemic or calamity of some sort, they're calling on the virtue of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and by the truth of the Dharma and the power of dependent arising, reciting these verses, contemplating them, then it's able to clear different malfunctions around. So in the Theravada countries nowadays, people, in the same way as in the Tibetan community, when people face different things going on in their families and businesses, in the Tibetan community, you go and request for a puja. In the Theravada community, you go and request for chanting of these kind of verses. Okay. So the Buddha often uses the term Tathagata to refer to himself. Tathagata may be translated as the one thus gone, indicating that the Buddha has gone to nirvana, the unconditioned state. Tathagata can also be translated as the one thus come, in that the Buddha has come to nirvana in the same way all the previous Buddhas have, by perfecting the 37 harmonies with awakening, completing the 10 perfections, and acting for the welfare of the world. Okay, if you do the practice of the 35 Buddhas, any of you do that? When you're reciting the names of the Buddha, you say to the one thus gone, and you say their name. So in the Sanskrit, the sutra has the word Tathagata there. Yeah. So this is explaining the meaning of the word Tathagata. And then what I read too also refers to the 37 harmonies with awakening. If you take the 8 Mahayana precepts in the verse that you recite for taking the precepts, there it's talking about the 37 aids to awakening, but another translation is the 37 harmonies, but that's what's getting referred to here. And this gets covered later, what the 37 are. Okay. But what I'm emphasizing is that it's interesting to see you find in verses in different texts certain phrases or concepts that are similar. And by seeing them, then it can help you reading one text can help you understand better the other text. So the Tathagata, the Buddha, has fully awakened to the nature of this world, its origin, its cessation, and the path to its cessation. That is, he fully comprehends the four truths. The Tathagata has fully understood and can directly perceive all things that can be seen, heard, sensed, known, cognized, and thought about. He knows them just as they are. Everything he speaks from the time he attained awakening until his parinirvana is true and correct, and his actions are consistent with his words. He has conquered the foes of the afflictions and is not conquered by them. Thereby, he possesses great power to benefit the world. So when you read, a paragraph like that and you contemplate the different qualities of the Buddha, on one hand, it inspires us to know that somebody's been able to accomplish that, and that we also have the potential to accomplish it. So it gives us a vision of what we can become and what our life can become. And I think that that's so important for people nowadays. Maybe it's not the same in Australia, but after COVID or during COVID, many people started suffering from depression and anxiety. Yeah, also there, Yeah. So you just your mind just sinks and but when you read verses like this and you think of all of those beings who've become Buddhas already, it gives us some encouragement and some vision for our life. And when we have that, our mood lifts considerably. Yeah. Because we really see, there's something important I can live for that can really make a difference, not only in my life, but in other people's lives. So the Tathagata has realized two great principles, dependent arising and nirvana. Okay. Now, in our tradition, we would say dependent arising and emptiness. So this makes the question come up, what's the relationship between emptiness and nirvana? And this is actually, it's not just coming up here, but even in our own tradition, they have many, many debates about, our emptiness is nirvana, all this kind of stuff. So, here it is, mentioned again. Although there may be great wealth, treasures, and jewels in the world, none of them even come near the qualities and benefit of the Tathagata. The Buddha is even more precious, rare, and difficult to encounter than a wish-fulfilling gem. Okay, so the whole story about the wish-fulfilling gem, this is something from Indian culture, some jewel that is somewhere at the bottom of the ocean. And if you find it and take it home, whatever you say to the gem that you wish for, it will come about, or you will have it. So the Buddha is comparable to a wish-fulfilling gem. He has the capacity to fulfill all our wishes for enduring peace and happiness through leading us on the path to nirvana. Okay, so the Buddha has the capacity to fulfill all of our wishes. But it's not by magic. It's not by going poof and all of our wishes are fulfilled. The way the Buddha guides us is by teaching us the path And then by us practicing the path, creating virtuous karma, purifying non-virtuous karma, then through that process, we're able to create the causes for whatever it is we want, including spiritual attainments. If we practice the path, meditate on emptiness, on selflessness, it will bring the result. Okay, so that was about the Buddha jewel. Now the Dharma jewel. The Dharma jewel, that is an object of refuge, consists of true cessations and true paths. Okay, so when we talk about the four truths, remember the first two were true dukkha and true origins of dukkha. And the last two are true cessations and true paths. Yeah. So true cessations and true paths, that's what we're aiming to develop. And those are also, they're not just the last two of the four truths, they're actually the Dharma jewel. And they say that the true cessations and true paths are the actual Dharma refuge, because when we actualize them in our own mind, then we attain, liberation or full awakening. And that mental state is really our refuge from all dukkha. Okay. So when it says, by this truth, may there be safety, that's the last line of the verse. It's saying, by the truth of praising the Buddha, may, and this is in the context of Vasali being overcome with the triple calamity. So may there be safety, may the calamity subside, and may sentient beings be safe, not only in their body, but in their mind and spiritually. Okay. So these verses are quite good to recite and contemplate when something is going on in society or even in your own life. Yeah. Okay, so the Dharma jewel, that is the object of refuge, consists of true cessations and true paths. This verse speaks of true cessations, nirvana, which, nirvana is true cessations, and nirvana is the ultimate aim of spiritual practice. Unlike the conditioned, impermanent phenomena of samsara, nirvana is not created by causes and conditions and does not change in each moment. Okay. So nirvana has four synonyms, each describing it from a different angle. So in the Pali tradition, these are the synonyms for nirvana. So it is destruction of craving, or you could say the destruction of ignorance, anger, and animosity. Nirvana is dispassion, because it is the absence of attachment, desire, greed, and lust. Nirvana is the deathless, because it is free from repeated birth, aging, sickness, and death in samsara. And four, nirvana is sublime. It's supreme, never-ending, and inexhaustible. So nirvana is often said to be cooling, because the heat of lust and mental afflictions has been extinguished, and experiencing nirvana is like diving into a pool of cool water during India's hot season. If you've ever been in India during a hot season, any water, just a drink of cool water is wonderful. Okay. And so here's another verse about the Dharma. So here it says, the Supreme Buddha praised that purity. That is called the uninterrupted concentration. There exists no equal to that concentration. This precious jewel is in the Dharma, By this truth, may there be safety. So this is the verse praising the Dharma Jewel. And now is going to come explanation of some of the terms in it. So the uninterrupted concentration, okay, refers to the supramundane eightfold path that leads to nirvana. When we say supramundane, that means the path that has realized directly selflessness. So, and it's called uninterrupted concentration because it brings immediate results. So no other path or samadhi can equal it. To develop the supramundane eightfold path, we must first cultivate the ordinary eightfold path by practicing the four establishments of mindfulness, of body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. These are part of the 37 harmonies with awakening that I mentioned before. Okay, so by practicing those and by developing the mundane right concentration, then we're able to actualize the supramundane eightfold path and concentration. So the difference between the mundane and the supramundane is the mundane is really affiliated with samsara. There's no understanding of selflessness there. And so we just keep perpetuating samsara. The supramundane is in the mind of somebody who has realized selflessness. And so that supramundane, the mind of an Arya, is very, very powerful and creates extraordinary virtue. So through these, we will gain insight, which examines the nature of the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena in a different way. This leads to the wisdom of clear realization, which breaks through and realizes the unconditioned. So the unconditioned is another synonym for nirvana. It's not conditioned. It doesn't arise due to causes and conditions. It's a permanent phenomenon. Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit here. Okay, so while the mind dwells in the uninterrupted concentration, wisdom actively penetrates the truth, meaning selflessness, bringing the immediate result of extinguishing certain defilements. When one emerges from that concentration, one is a stream enterer, an Arya. And unlike worldly samadhis that lead to rebirth in the form and formless realms, this samadhi leads to liberation. Okay, so generating these very deep states of concentration, this is not a uniquely Buddhist practice. People in other religions, practice samadhi. Many of them attain very deep states of samadhi. In Hinduism, they practice that. Some Christian mystics do. It's found in multiple religions. The thing is that there is the mundane samadhi, where your mind gets to real deep states of concentration, but your motivation is just to experience the bliss of those states of concentration. So as a result, those samadhis bring rebirth in the form and formless realms, which are states of samsara. There are two of the three samsaric realms. Whereas supramundane samadhis create incredible virtue and unpolluted karma, and they can therefore be conjoined with the insight, the wisdom realizing emptiness or selflessness, and then the union of serenity and insight, or the union of calm abiding and insight, is a very powerful mental tool to cut through all the grasping that we have in our mind. Yeah. So we want to attain those states. Yeah. So the supermundane Dharma consists of the 4 Arya paths, their fruits, and nirvana. These true cessations and true paths in the mind of the Tathagata are his Dharmakaya. Okay. Now it's interesting, we're reading something about the Pali tradition, and we come across the word Dharmakaya, which is found in the Mahayana tradition so much. Okay. So here it says the true cessations and true paths in the mind of the Tathagata are his Dharmakaya. Okay. And it's interesting, we will see when we talk about the 3 jewels according to the perfection vehicle, the Bodhisattva vehicle. Also, the supermundane Dharma is the true cessations and true paths in the mind of the Tathagata. So it's the same thing in both traditions. Okay. So this is what is Dharmakaya, often called the truth body. You may have heard that term in teachings. Yeah, the Buddha's truth body, that's what it means. So Buddhaghosa's commentary on the middle length discourses explains. So Buddhaghosa he was a Pali sage. He lived in South India around the 5th century AD. Yeah, and he wrote a book called The Path of Purification. That is one of the very commonly used books in the Pali tradition. Okay, now going on to talk about the Sangha Jewel. So that refers in the fundamental vehicle to the 8 Aryas, who may be monastics or lay practitioners. So remember before I said there were 4 pairs, and each pair had an approacher and an abider. So those are the 8 Aryas. Yeah. So that's the Sangha Jewel, because these 8 Aryas have realized the nature of reality. So they become reliable guides on the path. So that's the Sangha Jewel, the beings who have those realizations of the nature of reality. The conventional Sangha is the monastic order of fully ordained ones. So the 8 classes of Arya Sangha are subsumed in 4 pairs: the stream enterers, once returners, non-returners, and arhats. Yeah. And stream enterers, here's the explanation of those 4 stages. Stream enterers have a clear realization of nirvana. They have understood the 4 truths directly, made the initial breakthrough to nirvana, and abandoned 3 of the 5 lower fetters. So this is what they've abandoned: the view of a personal identity, doubt about the 3 jewels, and the view of rules and practices. So if you've studied low rig, you will know what these mental factors are. So this breakthrough or clear realization is called the arising of the Eye of Dharma. One now sees the Dharma and the truth of the Buddha's teachings. Okay, so before kind of practicing like us, we hear about the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. We get some kind of general understanding. It's through thought, it's through conceptualization, and we have just some kind of general idea what nirvana is, what the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are. Okay, when you become a stream enterer, then you've had in your meditation, direct perception of selflessness. Yeah. When you come out of that meditation, you no longer have that, you're not seeing selflessness directly at that time. But when you go back into meditation again, then that realization comes. But because you've seen it yourself, then all your doubt about the Dharma and the path to awakening disappears because you have attained part of the result. Yeah. And and your a lot of your grasping, a lot of your animosity and attachment, those things are what's the word? Suppressed. Yeah. They aren't eradicated yet, but they're suppressed. And what the three that are eradicated was the view of the personal identity, and some people in the Tibetan translated as view of the transient collection. Yeah. And then doubt about the three jewels, and then the view of rules and practices. So this is another view, another type of wrong view that we have about ethical conduct or rules, about the precepts, and about practices, what to practice in order to attain realizations. And when they talk about this, they'll bring up different things from the other Indian traditions, because this was originally taught in India. Okay, so practices that were done by certain ascetics in India, eating very little, sleeping on thorns, jumping in fires, this kind of stuff. And they would say, there's also one, this one's astounding. They say if you jump on a trident and the middle part of it, the middle spear, comes out your crown, then you've attained liberation. Yeah, you're also dead. Okay. Yeah. So, for the people who are thinking that this is the path to awakening, yeah, stream enters don't have any kind of those weird ideas, So, another way of saying it in a modern context, stream enters are not going to read the local New Age newspaper and go to all the local New Age people who have invented their own philosophy and practice that will get you to full awakening in 3 weeks for $99.99. But you can get a special bargain this week if you sign up. No, this is not how stream enters do it. Yeah. So they're reliable guides. So that breakthrough is called the arising of the Eye of Dharma. One now sees the Dharma and the truth of the Buddha's teaching. Because of the power of this realization, it is impossible for a stream enterer to do any of the 5 heinous actions. So you'll remember those. They're listed in the Mahayana teachings too. Killing the mother, killing your father, killing an arhat, causing a schism in the Sangha, and drawing blood from the Buddha. Okay, so when the stream enters have gotten to that stage, they can no longer do those. They just there would never ever be any intent to do any of those things. Okay, stream enters are endowed with virtue and observe ethical conduct well. Lay stream enterers keep the 5 precepts. The monastic stream enterers keep monastic precepts. While they may still commit transgressions, such as angrily speaking harshly, they never conceal their transgressions and confess and make amends as soon as possible. So those are all really fantastic questions to have developed. Because stream enters faith in the three jewels is unshakable. It's unshakable because they have those realizations. Yeah, they know what the three jewels are from experience. So because their faith in the three jewels is unshakable, they are firmly planted on the path to liberation. Some may attain arhatship in that very life, as did Shariputra and Moggallana and Ananda and many other of the arhats that we hear about. If not, they will be reborn in cyclic existence, but only as humans or devas, never in the lower realms. Okay, so stream enters with sharp faculties will take only one more rebirth. Those of middle faculties take 2 to 6 rebirths, and those of dull faculties will take at most 7 or more rebirths before attaining nirvana. Okay, so they've kind of made it in terms of reaching arhatship. Okay, they're not bodhisattvas. They don't have the bodhicitta that we want to generate. Okay, stream mentors with dull and modest faculties are not immune to the 8 worldly concerns, and sometimes their behavior may resemble that of ordinary beings. Okay, so they've had the insight into the nature of reality, but because the insight isn't really firm and their minds have not been familiarized with it over a long period of meditating on it, then their things are like they still have the 8 worldly concerns that may come up from time to time. Okay, you remember the 8 worldly concerns? Do you know them? Yes? Okay. I won't. So stream enterers who are householders may marry and be attached to their families. They may enjoy praise, compete in business deals, and become angry when criticized. Nevertheless, their afflictions are weaker than those of people who are not Aryas. Okay, so they've entered the stream, they're on the path to liberation, but they still have a lot of very mundane qualities. Then the second group, the once returners, so they have significantly reduced, although not completely eliminated, their ignorance, attachment, and animosity. And they will be reborn in the desire realm only one more time. Okay, so that's really good news because the desire realm is the realm we're in. And, we know the problems in our realm that come because people desire external objects. And so we have greed, we have attachment, people get in the way of us getting what we want, we get angry, they have more than what we want, we get jealous. Yeah, we get more than they do, we get arrogant. So many problems arise in the desire realm. But the once returners are only born in that realm one more time. Then non-returners have abandoned the fetters of desire and malice and will never again take rebirth in the desire realm. So that's really good, So they take rebirth in the form and formless realms. They're not out of samsara, but at least they don't take rebirth in the desire realm where there's so many distractions. And if the non-returners, if they don't attain nirvana in that life, they will be reborn in a pure abode in the form realm and attain nirvana there. Okay, so they're almost there. Arhats have eliminated the remaining fetters of desire for existence in the form and formless realms, as well as the fetters of conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. Okay, so in the fundamental tradition, in the Pali tradition, they list, they talk about afflictions the same way, our tradition does. But when they talk about what is abandoned through these 4 stages, they talk about the fetters, the 10 fetters. So the 10 fetters are also found in our tradition. If you look at the Abbey Dharma Kosha, written by Vasubandhu, you'll find them there. Okay. So that's the 3 jewels in the fundamental vehicle. Now we'll go to the 3 jewels according to the perfection vehicle. So the perfection vehicle, perfection here means the path of the paramitas, the 6 paramitas, that we practice after having generated bodhicitta. The 6 can also be spread out into 10 paramitas. Okay, so the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are called jewels because they are rare and precious. Rare because they appear in the world infrequently. Precious because they have the ability to lead us out of samsara to liberation and full awakening. Okay, so when you think about it, you've heard about, our precious human life. And one of the fortunes in our precious human life is having been born at a time when the Buddha has appeared, when he's taught the Dharma, and when the Dharma, the tradition exists, the teachings and the people who follow it still exist. Okay, so when it says that the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha are rare, it's for that reason, because they don't appear at every historical time in our world, and even in the whole universe, they don't appear everywhere. So it depends, their appearance and the Buddha teaching and the existence of the teachings after the Buddha attains parinirvana. All of that depends so much on our karma. If we practice well, if there are beings who are really sincere in their Dharma practice, then, the Dharma will continue. If there's degeneration in the Sangha, if people are not keeping precepts, if people hear the teachings and then act in the opposite way, then there will be degeneration, and the Buddha Sasana, the doctrine of the Buddha, will fade out in that place. So that's why it says that the appearance of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is rare. Yeah. And this is important for us to think about, because otherwise we really take it for granted that our ability to hear teachers, meet teachers, read Dharma books, have the opportunity to discuss with other practitioners. Sometimes we just get very complacent, and it's time. Tonight is the night for the Dharma teachings at the center, but I'm tired after work. I'll just stay home and rest. And then the week after that, oh yeah, here's another week. I'm hungry. I don't feel like going. And anyway, I have to drive a half an hour to get to the Dharma Center. I'd much rather stay home and have a cup of tea and some dinner and go to bed early. Okay. And so we have this kind of taking the Dharma for granted and not wanting to exert even the tiniest bit of energy to go to teachings or whatever it is. And so, this acting like this on our part, if we're not really sincerely interested, we don't sincerely practice, why should the Buddha Dharma Sangha continue? They'd just be twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing. So it's they're called rare for that reason, because they're not always present. And so when they are present, like it talks about in the meditation on the precious human life, then we should really take advantage and exert ourselves, to go to where the teachers are, to listen to the teachings, to study them, to put them into practice. Okay. And then they're precious because they have the ability to lead us out of samsara to liberation and full awakening. All sentient beings' virtuous attitudes, words, and deeds can be traced to the three jewels that continually instruct and encourage sentient beings in virtue. So when we do something virtuous, we think, oh yeah, that comes from inside me. I'm such a virtuous, wonderful person. What this is saying is that all sentient beings' virtuous attitudes, words, and deeds can be traced back to the three jewels. Because how do we know what to practice and what to abandon? How do we know what is virtuous and non-virtuous? When you're born in our cultures, does anybody teach you that? Does anybody know that? Okay, so again, having access to those who can really lead us on the path. And here we're not talking about Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva. Yeah. Do you know Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva? Many, many years ago, I was at Vajrayogini Institute, and Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa were there. And we decided to do some skits about Dharma, as an offering to them. Yeah, because sometimes when you do skits, you can really express a lot of Dharma things in a very funny way. So our skit was about Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva. Yeah, so Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva was the office manager, of the center. And so when people came in to register for the course, if they said, oh, I don't really have enough money for that, then Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva would say, no problem, come, it's fine. We will pay for your food. Yeah. And then if afterwards, if that person says, well, I want to stay here longer, Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva says, fine. You don't even have to offer service here. You can just relax. We have a sauna, go to the sauna. And then when Mickey Mouse, when the Dharma student leaves and says, I really don't have a lot of money, then Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva goes into the coffers in the office and, gives half of the money to the Dharma student, and so Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva says, I'm practicing generosity. Yeah, generosity. You told me that's the first thing I should practice, the best thing I should practice. And I'm doing that, but he's called Mickey Mouse Bodhisattva because he doesn't really understand what generosity is, because to practice generosity, you have to give away your own personal belongings, not those that belong to other people or to other groups of people. So we did this skit for Lama and Rinpoche, and all of us were laughing, Okay. So the three jewels are more valuable than the mythical wish-fulfilling jewel because they fulfill our yearning for complete peace and freedom. They differ vastly from ordinary jewels that may temporarily improve the conditions of this life, but cannot prevent or remedy all of our dukkha. Each of the three jewels has an ultimate and conventional aspect, which are presented below. So we'll come to that. So perfection vehicle practitioners take refuge in all the Buddhas throughout the universe. So you might remember fundamental vehicle practitioners take refuge in Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. Yeah, and the perfection vehicle, it's all the Buddhas in the universe, not just Shakyamuni. Okay, so taking refuge in all the Buddhas throughout the universe. So the Buddhas living on our earth, those in other realms, and those in the Pure Lands. In our world system, Shakyamuni Buddha is the wheel-turning Buddha who taught the Dharma. In other words, he turned the Dharma wheel when it was not previously present in our world. Yeah, so the wheel-turning Buddhas are, really kind because they go into the world where there's no light of the Dharma, and they teach the Dharma, they turn the Dharma wheel so that we have the teachings and can practice them. Others have become Buddhas by following the Buddha's teachings. Each Buddha has 4 Buddha bodies. Here, body means collection, as in a body of knowledge or a body of representatives. So Buddha bodies may be enumerated as 2, 3, 4, or 5. And these divisions involve different ways of classification, but they come to the same point. And that's coming. So there are several ways to posit the ultimate and conventional through 3 jewels. So what is following is one way to posit them. So first, the ultimate Buddha jewel. So the ultimate Buddha jewel is the truth body, the Dharmakaya, okay, which has the nature of the perfect abandonment of defilements and the perfect realization of all excellent qualities. Yeah, so the truth body is referring particularly to the Buddha's mind. Yeah, and the Buddha's mind completely has the perfect abandonment of all defilements. So every kind of affliction, defilement, stain is completely vanished from the Buddha's mind. And the Buddha also has the perfect realization, meaning that everything there is to realize, he has realized. Okay. Now, when you talk of the Dharmakaya, you can divide the Dharmakaya into 2. Okay. So the first is the wisdom truth body, and the second is the nature truth body. So these are both truth bodies. They're both Dharmakayas. One, the wisdom truth body, is the omniscient mind of a Buddha. And it has 3 principal qualities. Okay, so the first quality is knowledge. So the Buddhas know all the phenomena. Second quality is the compassion, because they seek to benefit sentient beings without any hesitation. And the third quality is power or ability. And that means that from their own side, a Buddha lacks all impediments to exercising their skillful means. Yeah. We may have some compassion, yeah, but without wisdom, we don't really know what help to give people. Yeah. We may have wisdom and compassion if we don't have power, if we don't have the ability to really reach out and affect sentient beings in a good way, then again, you know, something's lost. So these three qualities of the wisdom, truth, body, knowledge, compassion, and power are quite important. When you often see in tankas, or you'll hear in teachings, that they mention Manjushri, Chenrezig, and Vajrapani. Okay, so these three Buddhas, each one of them represents one of these three qualities. So Manjushri represents the wisdom of the wisdom truth body, or the knowledge of the wisdom truth body. Chenrezig represents the compassion of the wisdom truth body, and Vajrapani represents the power or ability of that truth body. Okay, so you'll often see those three bodhisattvas together. When Lama and Rinpoche were starting the FPMT, those were the first, those were the names they gave to the first three centers that they started. So Manjushri Institute in UK, which is now not an FPMT, and then Chenrezig Institute in Australia, and the third was Vajrapani Institute in the Redwood Forests in California. Yeah, so they named their first three centers after these bodhisattvas. Okay, so that's the wisdom truth body, the omniscient body of the Buddha, the omniscient, not body, well, it's body, but here, like it was just explained, body means a collection of qualities. Yeah. And then the nature truth body is the emptiness of the Buddha's mind and the true cessation of the Buddha's mind. So when we talk about, you know, the nature truth body, we can also divide that one into two. So then we have the natural stainless purity, yeah, of the Buddha's truth body, and that is the emptiness of inherent existence of a Buddha's mind. Okay, the natural stainless purity. Yeah. So it said, you know, that's the emptiness of the Buddha's mind. It said that we too have the natural, that we have natural purity, in that our mind too does not inherently exist. Okay, so talking about, whenever it says natural purity, it's talking about emptiness, you know, because emptiness is the nature of our mind, and it's the nature, the ultimate nature of the Buddha's mind. Okay, so the ultimate nature is the same in that respect. Yeah, what's different between our mind and the Buddha's mind is the other qualities, the knowledge, compassion, and power. Buddha has those qualities, we don't. Okay. So in terms of the nature truth body, the nature truth body is permanent. Yeah. Because, you know, it has two facets. One is emptiness or selflessness, which is permanent. And the second, and that one's called the natural stainless purity. And then the second is the purity from adventitious defilements. And that is a Buddha's true cessations of the afflictive obscurations. So the afflictive obscurations are those that bind sentient beings to samsara. So the Buddha has purity from those adventitious defilements. That is those. The purity from the adventitious defilements is the true cessations of those afflictive obscurations, and the true cessations of the cognitive obscurations. So the afflictive obscurations are those that prevent us from attaining liberation, okay? And the cognitive obscurations are those that remain even after somebody has attained liberation and is an arhat. Their mind is still obscured by the cognitive obscurations. Yeah. So those, yeah. So the Buddha's true cessations are the absence of those two sets of cognitive obscurations. Okay. And so the cognitive obscurations prevent them from knowing both the ultimate truth and the veiled truth, or conventional truth, simultaneously with one consciousness. So that's a quality that only the Buddha has, to know ultimate and relative truth with the same consciousness. Yeah, only the Buddha can do that one. Okay. So that's the Buddha jewel. But that's the ultimate Buddha jewel. Okay, now the conventional Buddha jewel. So this, and again, this is one way of describing it. Yeah. So the conventional Buddha jewel consists of the form bodies in which a Buddha appears in order to enact the welfare of sentient beings. Okay, so, the Buddha has all these realizations and their mind is completely pure of all defilements, but how are they going to teach us? Yeah, cannot tune in directly to the Buddha's mind and know what's going on in the Buddha's mind. The Buddha can't teach us through telepathy because, we're kind of dense. So the Buddha manifests in these two form bodies in order to teach us. So the first form body is called an enjoyment form, the enjoyment body, and the second one is called the emanation bodies. Okay, so the enjoyment body is the form that a Buddha manifests in where a Buddha manifests in the Akanishta pure realm that he or she manifests. Yeah, they manifest, they create a pure realm in order to teach the Arya Bodhisattvas. Okay, so the enjoyment body, is the form of the Buddha, a much more subtle body that appears in the different pure lands of different Buddhas. Okay, very often when we see pictures of different Buddhas, for example, there's Amitabha Buddha. When you see a picture of Amitabha Buddha, he's a monk. Okay, so Amitabha Buddha there is in the form of the emanation body, the second kind of form body. Yeah, but his Sambhogakaya form is Amitayas. So Amitayas does not look like a monk. He looks like, he has the earrings and ornaments and things like that, how the bodhisattvas are often indicated. Yeah. Okay. So the emanation bodies are the forms of Buddha manifest that are perceivable by ordinary beings. So the enjoyment bodies, only Arya Bodhisattvas can communicate with those. Yeah, they're too rarefied for us gross sentient beings. But so we rely on the emanation bodies, okay, that the Buddha manifests. So there's three types of emanation body. There's the supreme emanation body. So that's like a wheel turning Buddha. So in our age, that would be Shakyamuni Buddha. There's an ordinary emanation body that manifests in different appearances of people or things. Yeah. So, somebody who is a Buddha could appear in the ordinary form as our Dharma teacher, or can appear in many different forms according to what sentient beings need to help them at that moment. And then the third kind of emanation body is what's called the Artesian emanation body. And that subdues sentient beings' minds through showing certain worldly skills. And so the story here is there was one person, he was a violinist, I think, and a little bit proud. And so he was discussing with the Buddha, and I think this was the story where the Buddha asked him, if one of your strings on the violin, if it's too tight, what happens, and if it's too loose, what happens? So that's kind of analogous to in our meditation, if our concentration is too tight, or too loose. So by explaining that, there's also some story where the Buddha has, some kind of magical powers and, gets people to subdues people's arrogance. Anyway, the point of the story, which unfortunately I can't remember the whole story, is that the Buddha appeared as an artisan, in this case, a violinist or a flutist or whatever. And this person was very arrogant, and the Buddha acted in such a way that his arrogance went down. So that's the emanation body. Okay. So the truth body is so called because the wisdom truth body is the supreme true path, and the nature truth body is the supreme true cessation. So there you have the etymology. The Dharmakaya is the fulfillment of our own purpose in the sense that it is the total perfection of our own mind. The form bodies are the fulfillment of others' purpose because through manifesting in these various forms, Buddhas lead sentient beings to awakening. Okay, so you'll hear this kind of thing a lot in the teachings. Our own purpose and others' purpose. So, and this is good to understand because some people think, oh, you become a bodhisattva, so you never have any purposes for yourself, you never have any aims for yourself, everything's for sentient beings. Well, in one way, that's true. Everything a Buddha does is for the benefit of sentient beings. But in order to work for the benefit of sentient beings, the Buddha has to fulfill their own purpose. In other words, to abandon everything to abandon and to realize everything there is to realize. Okay, so that's called fulfilling our own purpose. And the fulfillment of that is the Dharmakaya, the truth body. And then to take that knowledge and compassion and power to express it to sentient beings, then they manifest the form bodies. And so that's the form bodies are said to be the fulfillment of the purpose of sentient beings. So form bodies are the fulfillment of others' purpose because through manifesting in these various forms, the various deities, the various bodhisattvas and so on, Buddhas lead sentient beings to awakening. The truth bodies and form bodies are one inseparable entity, meaning that if one is there, the other one is there. You can't separate them out. They're different, but you can't have one without the other. Say they are attained simultaneously at the first moment of Buddhahood. So contemplating the four Buddha bodies gives us a profound understanding of Buddha Shakyamuni. His physical appearance as the human being, Gautama Buddha, is an emanation body, a form he assumed to suit the spiritual dispositions and interests of ordinary beings in our world. So that's the kindness of the Buddha in manifesting, as the prince who renounced the world and attained awakening and so on. The emanation body derives from a subtler body, the enjoyment body. The enjoyment body appears in the Pure Land to teach the bodhisattvas. It's quite a subtle body. In the minds of bodhisattvas, Arya bodhisattvas, the minds of these Arya bodhisattvas are also more subtle than our minds. Okay, an emanation body derives from a subtler body, an enjoyment body. And that emerges from the wisdom Dharmakaya, a Buddha's omniscient mind. So wisdom Dharmakaya arises within the nature, the underlying nature of reality, which is a Buddha's nature Dharmakaya. So it's talking about the relationship between all these Buddha bodies and how, you attain one and it gives rise to the other and the other. But in fact, they're all attained simultaneously when we attain Buddhahood. Okay, so we have a few minutes for questions and comments. Yeah.
So there is wisdom, compassion, and power, right? But I don't see how power is equally necessary as wisdom and compassion. Could you give some examples of what power would be like?
Oh, okay. So power would be like the skillful means, of practicing generosity and ethical conduct and all these other kinds of things. Yeah. So the Buddha has the wisdom, has the compassion, and then has the ability. If you think of power as ability, to manifest and to teach and to communicate with sentient beings.
So even the ability to draw disciples in, that's counted as power, I guess.
Yeah, that would be it. But you can see that's power, but it's also compassion. It's also knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, powers. But, if you think about it, if a Buddha can teach the Dharma, but if you think of Vajrapani, Vajrapani looks very fierce. And that form, displaying that kind of power, communicates to us that what the Buddha is teaching is important. This is important. This is powerful. Wake up and listen. Okay. So it's kind of power, is what helps the Buddha be, effective. I don't know. That's the best I can say. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat. Sometimes, Venerable, we find the terminology quite difficult and difficult to grasp onto and to apply to everyday practice. How could we do that better?
Okay. So this was because this one talk had a lot of terminology in it. So I tried as best as I could when we came across different terms to explain what they mean. In our Dharma study, the first time we encounter certain teachings, there's a whole new vocabulary to learn, and there's totally new concepts. And so at the beginning, the first few times of listening to the teaching or reading the book we're just trying to get the vocabulary. And then once we get the vocabulary, then afterwards we can maybe start thinking, get the concepts that those vocabulary are expressing. And then after that, when we become familiar with the vocabulary and the concepts, then we can really think about and contemplate the Dharma and meditate more deeply. Okay. But it's like, okay, let's say, you want to be a rocket scientist. Okay. Maybe you are one already. So this example won't apply to you, but let's say you want to be a rocket scientist. So you go to rocket scientist school, some university, and you're listening. Are you going to be able to sit down even in Rocket Science 101? Do you think you'll be able to understand what they're talking about? Yeah. I wouldn't. Why? Why not? Because they're going to bring on all this vocabulary from physics, mechanical physics, quantum physics. They're going to bring in all this math stuff. They have rocket scientists have their own language. So if you want to be a rocket scientist, you have to learn their language. Yeah. And then you have to learn the concepts that language is referring to. Yeah. And it takes time. Yeah. But after you learn the concepts and the words, then it all falls into place and you can really think about it. So here, today you probably had a whole bunch of new words you didn't understand. Or some of you may have had teachings on this before and it may be familiar, but we need to hear it many, many times because it doesn't sink in the first time. And so having the book or taking notes, this is really important so that afterwards you can sit down and really think about what these words are and what these concepts are and retain them in your mind. If we can't, and that involves just sitting down and studying. Yeah. Now, if you're already 30 or 40 or 50 years out of school, you're not used to sitting down and studying. Yeah. But this is part of what you have to do to learn the vocabulary and the concepts. Then when you sit down to meditate on this and you start thinking about the Buddha, the knowledge of the Buddha, and you think all these things that you're learning, that you're struggling with, just to even understand intellectually, let alone integrate in your life and have them realize them, with your own experience, that the Buddha has all of that knowledge. It's like, wow, he has that kind of knowledge. So when the Buddha teaches, he knows what he's talking about. Okay. He doesn't just have knowledge, he has compassion. So why does the Buddha teach? Because of his compassion. Aren't we fortunate that the Buddha has compassion? That the Buddha didn't say, okay, guys, I have all the knowledge. Yeah, I have omniscient mind, but I don't have any compassion. So, I'm just going to stay in my blissful, peaceful meditation on selflessness and good luck, everybody. The Buddha doesn't do that. Why not? Because he has compassion. And then you think of, what it takes, the level of energy, the level of compassion it requires to manifest so many bodies to benefit so many beings. It's like, oh my God, how does he do that? And how does he maintain compassion? For us, when we are like so out of it, the Buddha gives us a teaching on something and we forget it, we do the opposite. Does the Buddha give up on us and say, oh, these sentient beings, just forget it, they're hopeless? No, why not? Because the Buddha has compassion. Okay. So as you start to get familiar with these ideas and then you meditate on it, it really influences you. And then you begin to understand, oh, this is why I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Before all my practices, I always say I take refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But half of the time I'm a space case. I don't even think about what I'm taking refuge in. Yeah. But now you know something about them. Now, when you start your practices, you can think, what are the Buddha's qualities? And then you feel this sense of confidence and trust arise in the Buddha. Okay. And that helps your mind. And then you think of the Buddha's compassion and wow, and the same with the Buddha's power and his ability to communicate with us. So, then okay, there's other beings who have those qualities. I can take refuge in them because they can guide me. But also I have the ability to become just like them and gain those same qualities. Isn't that remarkable? Yeah. I think I'm just like, some ordinary Joe Blow. I don't have any potential. I make all these mistakes. I can't do it. Yeah. But here, you see, well, the Buddha practiced the path and attained nirvana. I can too. Yeah. And then that really helps your practice when you have that kind of confidence. Okay, so that's how you slowly bring it into your meditation practice. Okay. In the Lamrim, they talk about refuge right after they talk about death and the lower realms. The idea being that you're scared of the lower realms, so you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, who will then teach you about karma. Okay. And then by practicing karma, you can avoid getting reborn in the lower realms. So that's the way the Lamrim is set up. I think that's because the Lamrim was set up for people who were already Buddhists in some way. So they had some faith in the Buddha. When Lama Atisha described the qualities of the Buddha, they could understand, they could take it in, and so on. When we were writing, this series of texts, I was talking with Venerable Sangha Kadro. She used to be one of the teachers at Chenrezig Institute. And we both were concluding that Westerners don't immediately have some kind of faith in the Buddha or don't know anything about who the Buddha is because we didn't grow up in a Buddhist culture. We didn't know anything about the Buddha. So we here take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and we're going, who's the Buddha? What's the Dharma? What's the Sangha? We don't know these words. So, but after hearing about death and impermanence, Westerners want, and people who didn't grow up as Buddhists, want to hear about karma. Oh, death, rebirth. Where am I going to be reborn? Karma is going to influence where I'm reborn, what I'm reborn as, what I encounter. I want to learn about karma. And so that's why we move the whole discussion of karma before refuge when we wrote the Library of Wisdom and Compassion. So the discussion of karma is in volume 2. Yeah. And this is volume 4. The 4? Yeah, 4, yeah. I wrote these things and then I can't remember what is what.
Thank you very much for spending time with us and teaching us. I just want to ask the question, the difference between ultimate and veiled truths.
Oh, okay. Oh my, one of those simple questions. Yeah, I can explain it 25 words or less. Okay. So veiled truths or conventional truths are mostly the things that we encounter in our life. They are called veiled truths because we perceive them through the veil of our self-grasping ignorance. So we don't perceive their real nature. Yeah, their real nature is veiled from us. Yeah, and the thing that veils their real nature is self-grasping ignorance. Yeah, so that's why they're called veiled truths. But when you ask, okay, well, that's the appearance, the way things appear, but what are they really? Ultimately, when we search for what something really is, what is it? Okay. And that's where we come upon emptiness and selflessness. Okay. The lack of inherent existence. So the ultimate truths are permanent. Yeah. Emptiness is a permanent phenomenon. It's a lack of something. Yeah. And then veiled truths include impermanent and permanent phenomena. Okay. This comes in, well, it's sprinkled. The explanation is sprinkled throughout the volumes, but the deeper explanation is in volume 9. Okay, which I am still writing at this moment. So it's not published yet.
I'm just like suspecting to say, but I might probably wrong, that the ultimate truth is probably, is it beyond emptiness?
No, that's a misconception. Yeah, there's no ultimate state of being beyond emptiness. Emptiness is the final way. If you analyze what something is to look for what it really is, you can't find anything positive that is that phenomena. What you find is emptiness. Yeah. So that's said to be the ultimate truth.